Today, I'm inspired in my defiance by the fact that Donald Trump wants to eliminate the filibuster, going with the so-called nuclear option in order to pass the budget. Obviously, this option has always been on the table. They have gone the nuclear route for a number of different efforts in the Senate. Most notably, in order to push through about 150 different roles that would otherwise be Senate confirmable and would require compromise and debate. By lowering the threshold for getting something done from 60 to 50, plus the vice president if he needed to break a tie, we see just how much control the Republicans have in our government. Now, the Democrats have been saying for a number of weeks throughout the shutdown that the Republicans have had this power the entire time. But for whatever reason, Donald Trump has only now remembered that this is an option. So if they choose to go with this option and pass the budget reconciliation with only Republican votes and destroying the filibuster in the process, they are essentially saying that they could have done this all along and it has taken them a month to do so for no particular reason. I'm of two minds about this. Obviously, they could have always done this. Why they are hesitant to do it seems very silly. It's as if they don't want to be on the hook for making terrible policy, for raising the premiums on millions of Americans who depend on the ACA subsidies. They wanted Democrats to also be on the hook for that. They also want the veneer that they are preserving the sanctity of the Senate procedures. But because they've gone this route for a number of other things, it seems very strange that they would not go this route for something as important as opening the government, as paying for the backlog of all the people who have been working for free for the last month. But it's still not clear that they will go down this path. Even though Republicans have control of the White House, the House of Representatives, and the Senate, they don't want the responsibility of governing. And even though Donald Trump is asking them to do the nuclear option and to lower the barrier for getting these votes, they still don't want to be on the hook for the actual decision-making. The reason for the filibuster, the reason for that 60-vote threshold is to allow for compromise, to allow for debate, to allow for collaboration across the aisle. But that isn't happening, and we have no hope that it will happen in the near future. Ultimately, this is not just a procedural squabble. It is about the idea that if you have control, you have to be responsible for enacting and taking part in the legislative process. And they're not interested in that, especially on the House of Representatives side. They're not interested in swearing in people who have been elected. They're not interested in releasing the Epstein files. And they're certainly not interested in legislating. And there's been some significant noise about the idea that the government may not be back until after the new year, that they would create the shutdown conditions to go all the way through January 1st. And at that point, people will be starving, the TSA agents will not have been paid in months, and I think that that is going to go terribly for pretty much everyone involved. But when you've built your brand, when you have built your party on the idea of saying no, saying yes is not even an option. You always have to have someone else to blame for the decisions you are making. Whether it's blaming the former Biden presidency, or it's blaming the system for tying your hands so that you can't do anything unless you get to that magical 60-vote number. It has ground our government and our ability to make decisions to a halt. And so ultimately, what I hope happens is that they preserve the filibuster and they work with Democrats to continue the ACA subsidies. This seems entirely reasonable, but also incredibly unlikely. I'm also inspired today by the fact that many of the MAGA faithful, especially those in high positions, have moved onto military bases. The idea that the civilian leadership of our government is now being housed on military bases is really scary to me. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, have both moved into DC area military encampments. This is not okay. They should be in their homes. We should be able to protect those people as well as have them not be a part of the military apparatus. They have no role within that. When these people take up residence in military housing, they are saying that they are an extension of the military. It is a consolidation of control, of power in our country. We should not be using our military to control the narrative in order to make it harder for civilians to go about the work of their lives. We should call into question any time that this kind of consolidation is happening within our country. We have to warn one another whenever we head towards totalitarianism, towards this fascist idea that there is one controlling power and that it must be centralized. And finally, I'm actually inspired by the fact that 25 different states plus the District of Columbia have sued in order to keep SNAP benefits going. It is a complete falsehood that we cannot support these benefits even during a shutdown. We have contingency funds that are explicitly for this purpose, and to allow people to go hungry during Thanksgiving or at any point in our history is wrong. And so I'm heartened by the fact that 25 states, all democratically controlled, as well as Washington, D.C., have sued in order to preserve this right for people to not go hungry. I understand that this particular administration isn't all that interested in preserving people's lives, in making sure that they have enough food to eat, that they can be cared for in our hospitals, or that they can afford the things in their lives that make their lives worth living. It seems as though the whole point is oppression. It is to make it harder and harder for people to live, so that they opt out of the American experience, that they either leave the country or that they die. But the people that are on SNAP benefits need them. They are children, and they are people who have significantly fewer opportunities to find high-paying jobs. And if you cannot support them in being able to live, then you are actively pursuing death for many people. And that is not good enough in the richest nation in the world. If you don't see it, that we have a duty to care for one another, I really don't know what we're doing. It is essential that we care for one another enough to feed the hungry. This is a moral good that we could pursue, that we have been pursuing for decades. And to stop it now when we can fund this is unbelievable. So I hope that this lawsuit goes through. I hope that it is overturned and that we open up the reserves to pay for people's SNAP benefits. And more than that, I hope that the government reopens and that we continue to make progress on our goals for supporting one another in our communities. We have to believe in one another, and we have to believe that feeding children and those in need is something we are capable of, and that it isn't too much to ask. If you've gotten this far in the video, I hope you like what I'm doing here. Please do subscribe and like the video. I have really enjoyed making them over the last month. I'll see you again on the next one.